Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep critical difficulty walkthrough. This is Aqua. We are entering Enchanted Dominion, and this is a walkthrough from quite a while back. The people who have been with me for, a little while remember, but the new people possibly won't understand what I'm doing here. So basically, folks, back when the 2.5 HD game remix was released, it was about last November. I picked it up. I covered these games quite extensively for a pretty large period of time, but like anything, when you have a lot to cover and you're uploading on a schedule, it can burn people out in the content, it can push people away. So I took a creative executive decision and I decided to stop uploading parts at that point so that I could do it later on when people actually wanted it, rather than forcing it down their throats. So now that we're on the eve of the announcement and the upcoming release of Kingdom Hearts 2.8, I thought it would be a nice idea to bring this thing back slowly and build some momentum, and to give some of the people that are really interested in Kingdom Hearts a little bit more content, because it's quite funny at the time when I was watching the performance of these walkthroughs. The very first one I put up was the Ventus Live walkthrough, where I went through it pretty much very close to base level because of the way I was playing and I wasn't really farming or anything. And it did pretty good. And then the next few videos that I put up, because it was kind of swamped in Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, they just didn't really do as well as I'd hoped that they would. And the performance looked, not so great, which I should really say. These little dudes here, they might not look like much, and it might look like I'm bumming them, but they're massive arseholes. They're colossal arseholes. And Spellweaver, if you don't know, when you're playing as Aqua, it's pretty much the command action you want to move towards, because you're completely invincible, it is multi-hit, multi-purpose, it destroys everything. And later on in the game, if you know how to do it, you can actually build an ice cream that puts you into full command status, so that you can chuck an ice cream as a consumable and immediately go into Spellweaver. And if you're going to play that way, because you can get a ton of these ice creams, like 99 of them, you can use it to do some serious damage to a lot of bosses and a lot of enemies. However, it's a strategy that I wasn't too familiar with at this particular moment in recording, so you're not going to see too much of it from me as I try and jump onto the geometry so that I can do some commands to get across. And as you can see, I don't have enough of the surges equipped to get fully across to try and get some items early or to circumvent some backtracking, so I just kind of move on. But as I was saying, it's kind of funny that I looked at that performance as not doing too well, when in the light of things like my Witcher 3 playthrough and a couple of other playthroughs recently, it was doing better than they were. And I suppose it's just that thing of, as a content creator on YouTube and somebody who has, over 20,000 subscribers, you expect a certain number of people to watch, and that expectation is almost always wrong. Which, wow, you see that? That's what we're dealing with here, folks. Incredibly dangerous people, especially the arrow guys. You'll notice there's ones with spears and there's ones with bows and arrows. The bows and arrow guys are absolute assholes, and there is a fight. I don't know if it's on Terra's, I don't know if it's on Aqua's, I don't know whose it's on, but you're in a room full of bow and arrow guys, and it really sucks. It sucks almost as much as the delay that it takes you to swap styles then. But if you don't know what I did then, I went into the dynamic link, which is a technique I never use, but it's also a technique that completely restores your HP. So it is incredibly powerful, and I recommend using it mercilessly, because this game, on critical, early on, is pretty difficult, and if you're going to do a level 1 run, you're going to realise that you can die in 1 or 2 hits. You can die and get really unlucky just by a couple of combos. You run into an enemy and they get 2 hits on you, and you might die. But I do think it makes the game a lot more fun, because anybody who's played a lot of Kingdom Hearts will know that they're not the most challenging games, outside of perhaps the first one, where it had those difficulty spikes that a lot of reviewers complained about. But then the second one came out and it was kind of like Dynasty Warriors, where you didn't even have to pay attention half the fucking time. But when they implement these new difficulties, I really do think it forces you to play the game as it was probably intended to be played, which is, thinking about strategies, thinking about what you're using, thinking of your actions and your equipment and your abilities. And I do think that they're moving towards a much more cohesive combat system. And the stuff showcased in Birth by Sleep is leaps and bounds above the other Kingdom Hearts in my opinion, but at the same time, I do think that there are improvements that could be made. But I think every game that they release has got some improvements in some way, so, you know, it's a work in progress. And it makes me really happy that these games exist and we can now play them in a little bit more of a palatable environment, as I use a move I used to never use when I first played this game, because I played it on a PSP emulator, and for whatever reason, you just couldn't do that move. Like, I had the controller mapped as it is on my controller, and that was just something you couldn't realistically do because of the way that it emulated the controls. So I ended up playing the entire game never doing that move, and if you're ever wondering why I never do it, that is exactly why, because I just don't have the habit of it, as somebody takes off a big old chunk of my life, little sniper bastard. But I really like the slots on these games. I love how you can combine the moves together and get these, essentially it's just this cavalcade of damaging moments. You know, you can pull them in, you can pound them while they're there, you can blow them up, you can freeze them, and then you can fire them away. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's not even talking about the melee actions, which I do find to be really satisfying, even though the magic is insanely overpowered on this game. But Kingdom Hearts 2.8 is the dumbest title I've ever heard, but then again, we are talking about a team that named a game like 365 and 2.5 Cornish pasties, or whatever that bloody DS game was that I played a while back, which I was really surprised at how good it was, to be honest, because it controls, you know, pretty faithfully to the series. It's so goddamn long and so full of filler that you spend more time watching Roxas and Axel have ice creams and get all homoerotic than you do anything else, and then when you play, it's a bit of a slow burn, I think. It's a game that's meant to be kind of farmed and grinded, and it's a portable game for when you're on a train and you're not really asking for anything too intensive. And I think it definitely shows on that one. But the 2.8, I don't really know anything about it, guys. I'm not really an arbiter of what's going to be in that pack. All I know for certain is that they are it's not a remastering, it's just like a high-def remixing of Dream Drop Distance, which was on the I forget the name of the new DS fucking something special, the new one anyway, and I never played it because it has the 3D applications and all that stuff, and my DS is, you know, not as cool as that one, so I never got a chance to get my fingertips on it. But I'm super stoked to do so because it's the only Kingdom Hearts game at this point that I haven't played, and I'm just really excited as I go into my equipment here and show you some things. You may wonder the logic behind what I do with the moves. There is no logic, guys. Look at it like this. Whenever you master something, you should always swap it out for something different so that you're constantly mastering things and constantly leveling stuff up. The more leveled up magic you have, the better magic you can make, the more you can sell, the more you can buy. It's really an interesting economy that works very, very well, and I like it a lot as I spam roll a couple times here to try not to get bummed, and immediately try and cancel into a block just in case, which I wish you could cancel out of your guard a little bit better, and I wish that the guard was a little bit more responsive. In my opinion, I think it'd be so much cooler if you could hold the guard, because the timed guard animation, I think it's like a testament of older gaming, and it's something that just never feels that fun in the grand scheme of things, because it leads to a lot of mistakes that are perhaps not always on the player's fault. You know, past the first one, of course, you didn't guard at the right time. That is all on you, that's your mistake. You should do better. It's just one of those things. We should play better, we need to play better, we practice. But then afterwards, it's just the game then being like, nah, we're not doing this, fuck you. And that's the thing that I disagree with, because getting trapped in an animation that lasts a certain amount of time, or doing something slightly too early, even though you had the right idea, as much as I do enjoy punishing a player for bad timing, it is one of those things where it'd be nice if I could just cancel into a dash and then guard cancel the dash. You know, just a greater measure of usability. Because I think the ultimate goal from me as a player when I play something like this is that I blame myself rather than the game. Like, I think it can be so easy to blame a game. Everybody does it. It's one of those gut reactions that happen. Sometimes it's completely valid, other times it's perhaps not so valid, but in the heat of the moment, you know, you feel like it is. It's only on further analysis that you realise, yeah, it was me, and I just didn't do that right. But the goal will forever, for me personally, be to that point where I know it was me, so I can't even say, you know, like, I might say it's bullshit, because I say that all the time. It doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of like a euphemism for, I have nothing to say right now except I believe this is unjust. And that's pretty much the definition of when I say bullshit. Unless it is in fact bullshit, then it works. So, I'm not too sure what's happening right now. The music is going all crazy as if we're meant to be fighting, but there was nobody in that room. That was the room I thought we were going to have to do as well, so it must not be on Aqua's campaign. But there's me trying to skip a sequence I don't quite have. If I had more than one sliding dash, you can do those kind of things really easily, but this is actually quite challenging, this part, just because of the archers. The archers... Wow. That you die so fast. It's great, but it's also really frustrating if you're having a bad time. But look at the prince as well. The prince, you need to be careful because he can get injured here, and you'll notice that they mess him up just as quick as they mess us up. And I was playing really passive there. I don't know if I've explained this too well up to this point, as the prince gets all knocked out and does the whole cliche, it's a wrestling match and I have to pretend to be tired so you can come over here and do your super cuddle move. You know, so you can sell it and make it look better. Because everybody waits for you to set up these crazy moves in a real fight, guys. That's how fighting works. Ooh, Spellweaver. I'm using it quite a lot. It is a beast move. You need to make sure that your moves coalesce into Spellweaver though, because some won't. Certain moves go into different command actions. You just have to look into your deck and find out which ones do, and I recommend always Spellweaver because it is the best. It's just... If you watch a speedrun and you see them using something, it means pound for pound, it's probably the best thing to be using at that moment in time. Unless it's not optimized the run you watch. Like one of my speedruns. But here's when things get a little tricky. Just purely because there's a lot of archers, they do massive damage, and I'm trying to poison these guys, but early on it can be pretty tough when you don't have that many good stuff, and Aqua is all about magic. Her melee is not as great as the others. Her evade is pretty beast because they all have god tier evades. Her reflect is pretty good too. It's probably the first or second best counter technique. The only counter technique that isn't good is Terra's, and it's because it's not omnidirectional. And I'm not too sure if Ventus's is, because it's been a while since I played, guys. I recorded this when the game came out, so this is like year-old gameplay at this point. And I should really mention that this was the first campaign that I captured. It's the second that I've released. I still have Terra's, which was the last that I recorded. I know that sounds confusing, but you might see the sloppiest gameplay of all my Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep content in this particular one, because I was relearning the ropes. I went straight in on critical, you know. I was confident that I could do it, and I didn't actually know this campaign too well, because this was the only campaign I didn't finish when I played it originally on the PSP via emulator. But not the quickest strategy here, guys, but it's getting it done. A nice little war of attrition against these arsehole arbalists. A lot of people have been asking about the optional fights. I will not be doing the Mysterious Stranger because I think that boss is a piece of shit. That might be one of the worst optional bosses I've ever fought in any game ever. The design on whoever made that is just stupid. And every single strategy I've seen against that fight has been, oh, I'm level 100 and I just do big damage, and then I do this cheesy strategy, which is not really cheesy because it's essentially the only safe way of approaching it. Some people use mines, some people use the Surger moves that give you iframes, but the general consensus on that boss is it's a piece of shit. And he has moves that are luck based, he can heal himself, he can do all kinds of fucking nonsense, and I was fighting it at about level 20 something, and I got a couple of life bars off him, but I just found it to be an absolute RNG nightmare, and I wasn't having any fun. And the distinction for me is, like, you can have the hardest boss on the planet that is completely brutal, grueling, and an absolute achievement if you can pass it, but if it isn't any fun, I don't give a shit. I won't do it. And that doesn't mean that I can't do it, and it doesn't mean that if you've done it that's not an achievement, because it certainly is. I just don't find it very fun, and truth be told, I think all the optional bosses in Birth by Sleep are dog shit. I don't like No Heart too much. I don't like the Lingering Will. I think that fight's fucking horrible. And I think that the Mysterious Stranger is the worst, by far. Because it's just not a fun fight. And if it was a fun fight, I'd try and get some kind of crazy bullshit level 1, no damage on him. But that is not a fight that's fun. And I have no interest in smashing evade for an entire minute to get one hit off on a boss, and repeating that for, you know, 7 to 10 minutes, however long it takes me to do him without him cheesing me with his fucking heel. Like, not interested whatsoever, guys. So if you were looking forward to that, I am sorry. There's plenty of videos online of it. I'm sure you'll find somebody who's got a good strategy or something that's really cool. But for the most, all I saw was incredibly high-level players. Like, and I don't mean high-level in skill, although they will exist. I just mean they were max level with, like, the swords that you get for beating all the Colosseum stuff, which I have no interest in doing because you have to do that stupid fucking racing, which is literally the worst. You know, if you were brought up on Mario Kart, you've got Diddy Kong Racing, why the fuck would you want to do rip-off bullshit, not as fun, dog-shitty, wannabe Square Enix racing? I know I don't. But I'm sure there's somebody will. I do love this enemy. Look at that. It's just so beautiful. The way you can destroy this game, it's poetry. And you'll notice I'm trying to chain my command style without using it, because I do believe one of the best strategies of this game is to chain your command style up until you get to something worth using it on. And I wish it was a little different in how you utilise your command action, because you notice how it supersedes my attacks. So at this moment, if I press a standard attack, I will go into Spell Weaver because it will cancel into it regardless. I think in the next game, if they're going to carry this command deck system forward, it'd be really nice to have an option not to use it, because then it will give people the creative strategy of choosing when to use it rather than being forced into it. And I think that would be a really, really cool addition. Because I'm all about that depth, folks. I love a game that gives you options, and like Metal Gear Solid 5 is kind of hot shit right now, even though there is a massive divide of people that are saying it's the most overrated game on the planet and boring and repetitious. Like, I heard somebody say that Fultoning was super repetitious and it made the game boring. Like, when have you ever got bored of opening chests in RPGs? And if you have, maybe you shouldn't play RPGs, dude. Because it's just a mechanic for doing something that is tertiary to the gameplay that rewards you in certain ways. Like, how is it any different than grabbing ammo in a first-person shooter? You know, it's something you do without thinking. That's what it's meant to be. And if you played Peace Walker for any measure of time, you probably won't even have this critique. But for somebody to say that, it's just like, oh yeah, I get super sick of shooting people in Call of Duty. I mean, I don't know why I play. Like, what the fuck, bro? Come on. Not even related. But Metal Gear Solid 5 is a game I started off finding it very hard to enjoy. My review of that game is going to be so, like, contradictory. It's going to almost seem like I'm a different person by the end of it. Because it is literally a game that I grew to enjoy the more I played it. Immeasurably so as well. I went from being quite cold and being like, yeah, that's kind of fun, you know, it's kind of cool, to, I love this game. But it wasn't an easy transition to make. And one of the things that made it so easy towards the end to not help but really enjoy it and come to really, really like it in spite of its flaws was just because there's so much to it. So much to it. Every single video I've watched of somebody doing something that I've done, like S-ranking a tough level, they did it different than I did. They did it in a way I would have never thought to do it. And it motivates me to go back in and find something cool like that. Like, find something I would never think to do and just divulge it and share it and just build towards this collective consciousness of cool stuff. And that game is ripe with it. And it doesn't really have to be that complicated, but it's depth. And it's the thing that keeps you coming back, because one of my biggest criticisms of Metal Gear Solid 5, outside of the story, outside of the pacing of the second act, outside of the horrendous introduction, outside of... I'm not even going to continue, guys, I could be here all day, but it's the lack of a big boss rank. It's a lack of actual difficulty. I think they made the game too easy, and for the people who like to aspire for greater things, I think they didn't really give you too much, because the no trace bonus can only be achieved on certain levels, and for the most, you can get no trace bonus incredibly easily. It's not something that takes a lot of dedication. The figuring out part might be tricky, but all you do is watch a video, and he showed you a great path, and it's easy to replicate. You did none of the work and got all of the reward. Like, you can't do that on a big boss rank. You have to earn it, and that doesn't exist in this game, which I find to be a dreadful shame. As I get another sticker, which, getting the stickers is quite important, even though you're not seeing me do it too much. Because it enables you to get certain abilities, you know, get ingredients and things. There's a lot of features in this game that I really do like, but that's the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.